Alright, you got Roguetech installed. You set up your first playthrough's settings and finished going through the commander's screen, and you followed my previous guide on getting the +2 tactics. You got yourself a bushwhacker. You're feeling pretty good. So you go in to start your first Roguetech playthrough. And here's the screen you're faced with. Since you did a mercenary start, you have no idea where you are. Although actually I think it is outreach now. It used to be randomized, but I think it is always outreach now. In any case, it's your first time Roguetech. You have no idea where outreach is. And more importantly, you go to your mech bay to look at your bushwhacker, and it's not there. Because you have to advance one day in the timeline to get your commander perk. Whatever it is you're supposed to get for your starting equipment for your commander, you don't get it until you pass one day. But before you do that, that one day is 1/30th of a financial report, which at present, with my current mechs and my current Mechwarriors, 1/30th of a financial report is what is that, 10,000 C-bills? A little over? It's not nothing. It's not necessarily going to bankrupt you, but it's not nothing. Just for reference, if we pop over to the store, which we want to skim through before we look at our mechs anyway, we can see 10,000. That'll get us a flamer. We might lose one in our first mission. But we definitely, whenever we look through the store for the first time, I believe I already went through the interface in one of the previous guides. If not, don't worry too much about most of what you see here. The only things that matter is this box right here in the buying section. Because it's your first day on the job. You just got the Argo up and running. You don't have money. You may have 2.5 million C-bills, but that does not mean you can immediately buy a 1.6 million C-bill vehicle. We'll get to that in a minute. But what you're actually here to look at, ignoring all of this, is the weapon systems that are on offer. We have an AC-2, some battle armor weapons, a flamer, some LRMs, including a quick sell LRM, which is -3 accuracy to everything. I mean, it is lighter. It's half the tonnage of a regular LRM5, which you won't even see any quick sell things if you don't have the quick sell mod pack enabled within Roguetech. Whenever you set up the... I didn't quite follow my overview of it because I'm having to use the same install for both this and the Challenge Run Mark III. So I set it up for the Challenge Run Mark III, and we're just gonna run with it. Also, actually, now that I think about it, Mercenary might not start an outreach in the 2765. Regardless, we're in the 3080s, and yeah, this is the store that I'm looking at for this first day, and I'm not gonna buy anything. Doesn't matter what they have, even if they have something really nice. Don't buy it yet. Guardian ECM, I'm very much looking at that. We will get into electronic warfare once we drop in our first mission. I actually can show some, well, once we drop in the first mission with electronic warfare. I'll do an overview there where I can actually show you things. But for now, anything electronic warfare, you probably don't have in your mechs, so keep your eyes out for that. Ammo that matches the weapon system. So we have an AC-2 here. All we have for AC-2 is a double bin, which is overkill, to say the least. So one AC-2 is not going to be able to fire 75 times, no matter how long the mission goes. So that would be a wasted ton, because you don't have a single bin. So basically, the AC-2 would cost a ton more than it otherwise should. We do, however, have LRM double bins here, as well as LRM half bins. And we do have LRM launchers. The in LRM... Oh, so they changed enhanced LRM to in LRM. Alright, fair enough. I guess it does, there was previously ELRM and ENH LRM, and it did cause some people confusion. But an ELRM, or extended LRM, does more damage the further away the target is, and an enhanced LRM, or in this case, in LRM, does more damage. It weighs a little bit more, but it does more damage per missile. So for the same ammo count, you get more damage assuming the same hit chance, which there is no hit penalty, so yeah. Good weapon system. Very good weapon system, and it does use standard LRM ammo, which is cool. So that is very interesting. The Guardian ECM is very interesting, and we have all the ammo we could possibly need to run the LRMs. So if we were to pick all of that up, that would already be 468, almost 469, another 250, and then ammo. So yeah, that's 800 plus already if we just bought those things. And we only have 2.5 because I left everything at default, as I, again, suggest you do for your first time really getting the feel for things. So I would like to buy those things, but before I do, I can't afford to make any frivolous investments. I'm not even going to advance the day to see what I get from the commander's stash until after I've looked through my mech bag. So, if you're familiar with my Mech Lab Monday episodes, I would go through and look at everything and change everything because I was literally only dropping on one mission, so I didn't have to worry about financial reports. I didn't have to worry about how long I was going to be sitting on my hands while mechs were repairing. Don't do that. Instead, look at your highest priorities. So, right now, we're just going to look through. We're going to see what is good enough for now and what needs a little bit of attention. So, we have a Phoenix Hawk. It's got a mask. It's got a bunch of jump jets, so it's going to be very mobile. It actually has solid armor. I would like to add more back armor, definitely. But for the first mission, I'm not worried about it. I'm absolutely not worried enough to prioritize adding more back armor over modifying some of the other mechs, especially since we do have a large pulse laser, so if nothing else, we can jump back or run back and fire at longer range, preventing people from getting into our back. So the Phoenix Hawk is good enough for now. Now, if I have the opportunity, I will improve it before dropping on the first mission, but we'll get to that as soon as I'm done, step by step by step. This is day 0. This is what we're going to do this entire episode. We are going to establish what to do before you actually commit to anything. So, the Phoenix Hawk. Again, the reason why the Phoenix Hawk is, just to make sure it's very clear, the reason why the Phoenix Hawk is good enough and not going to be touched as a priority, it already has a double heatsink kit. So its heat delta, if you go over to heat efficiency, I could tell just by looking at it, it has a heat delta of -11. Which means, even in a hot biome, you're going to have to try to overheat it. Or if you're jumping literally every turn, that can do the trick too. Jumping does generate heat, so... But you can always just not use the jump jets. Regardless, it's got good armor values. It's maxed armor on the arms, almost maxed on the legs, and it's over 3/4 everywhere else, except for the back armor. Again, the back armor you can deal with by just preventing people from getting behind you. And also, we'll get to it probably, I think, next, or maybe the next, one of the following episodes, one of the next couple days, I will be dropping on the first mission after, well, actually, I think I'm probably just going to spend an entire, just time, an entire period of time just at the mission select screen, going over everything to consider with what you've got sitting in front of you. But that's later. This is day 0 continuing. And yes, I'm very much mentioning all the things that people want to hurry up and get to, because those are things you have to be aware of that you need to not. You need to make sure that your eggs are in, your eggs are in a row, ducks are in a row, whatever. You have to make sure you're ready. Because if you just drop into a mission with all just default mechs, you're probably going to lose stuff that you didn't need to. So, again, our goal is to have, on a medium mech, full armor on the arms, legs, at least 3/4 on the torso. I mean, you see that even with a little bit over 3/4, it still has 15 more armor on the side torsos than it does on the arms. Yeah, that's how things go. But since the Phoenix Hawk does have the vast majority of its... I stand corrected. It has all of its weapons on its arms. It's very important to not lose them. So, yeah. Now then, we're going to look... Actually, I'm going to go ahead without even looking. I'm going to shift these around to tonnage order so that I can actually look at them in order of value. Essentially, when you have a Locust and a Hornet and you drop them on a mission and they explode, you're not necessarily terribly sad about losing the chassis because you'll get something better very quickly. But losing the stuff inside can be very devastating. But we'll get to that. Again, we're just looking. We're not going to change anything yet. We're just looking. Stealth. Alright, so the stealth here is a little bit slim on the arms. I mean, it doesn't have weapons in the arms, so that's fine. The arms are mostly for punching, which you can also see by the, short-range missiles and medium lasers it's carrying. So it very much wants to get in close. Which means the back armor is more important. Luckily, it has a little bit more back armor. So if you hover over a medium laser, which is kind of the stock standard weapon, at least, early game, it does 25 damage. We've got 55 structure and 25 armor on each side torso and the center torso in the back. That means if we get hit by a laser, a medium laser, to any of those locations, it doesn't even have a chance to crit without it being a through armor crit, which is less likely to happen than just component damage. Or structure damage, I'm sorry, not component. If you take structure damage, you have a crit chance, period. Doesn't matter what you're being shot with. Different weapons will have different through armor crit chances, and missiles have higher crit chance, or through armor crit chance than lasers, and ballistics have a higher through armor crit chance than missiles. But that's all of much more advanced. We'll get there. We'll get there. Crawl before you can walk and all that. So, this also has a mask, which I'm not going to complain. I will definitely take time talking about masks once we drop in the first mission, because that is a tool that we will actually be able to make good use of. And yes, there's a crit chance. We'll deal with that. We'll deal with that when the time comes. But for now, the things to note is it has short-range weapons, which you can tell by hovering over them. Minimum, optimum, maximum. So from minimum to half of optimum, you have, I believe, a +2 accuracy. Unless there is a minimum range. If the minimum is anything other than 0, then within that range, you have a massive penalty. But if there is no minimum, like a medium laser or an SRM, then halfway between your minimum and optimal range is your highest hit chance. Then between that and your optimal range is no penalty. Once you get past the optimal range, you start taking a penalty to hit. And then once you reach max range, you are at the highest penalty to hit. If the target is beyond max range, you cannot shoot them with this weapon. So you may be asking, well, we'll get to the ranges once we get to the combat, or at least when we're about to drop on a mission. For now, the important thing to know is small numbers mean you gotta get close. And 480 isn't the smallest number, but it's a small number. 360 is an even smaller number. So this mech needs to get close. Which, coincidentally, it has hands. It's gonna have some good time trying to punch. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. For now, the armor is the main thing, and the cooling is the other thing. So it also had a double heatsink kit. I need to make sure I slow down and actually tell you all of the things that I'm seeing and thinking. So this is the same thing I did with the with the previous mech, with the Phoenix Hawk. So I saw the double heatsink kit. I looked at the weapons. I just did the mental calculation real quick and went, yeah, no, this thing is not generating heat. And if you hover over it, if you're not familiar with weapons enough, hovering over it, it has a heat delta of -27. So this thing's even less likely to overheat than the Phoenix Hawk. But it also has the jump heat. So if you are jumping around, you will be generating heat from jumping. So you will have to pay a little bit closer attention. But as long as you have a heat delta of -20 plus, it's not really that big of a deal. So the other thing to note here, other than the short range, the fact that the heat is fine, it also has a... We'll get to the engine cores and worrying about what speed the different mechs are moving at and all that in a bit. We'll get there. This is just the first pass through the mech bay. There's a couple more after this one. This is just the kind of intelligence gathering, getting a gist of what the different mechs' strengths, weaknesses, and needs are. And the thing that's most interesting here is the Beagle Probe. It will not do anything to protect this mech or the Lance, but it will help against enemies that have electronic warfare suites, or electronic countermeasures, or stealth. It will negate their bonuses against being hit. So this thing wants to get in close, and once it does get in close, it's very likely to hit most early game targets. So this is going to be an interesting one. But most important thing to look at this first pass is, does it have enough armor for the first mission at least? And is there anything that's like crucial? For example, say it only had a single medium laser on a medium mech. That would need to be addressed. Because that's a lot of tonnage to only have one medium laser. So this is an SRM-6, a Streak 2, and 2 medium lasers. It's not the most weapons, but again, the fact that it does have the arms completely open, so it will be able to punch and shoot, makes me okay with it. So, moving forward, we have an assassin. The assassin here is not nearly as good off as the other two medium mechs. This is going to be a priority mech. So you'll notice immediately it does not have any kind of armor or structure upgrade. This just says armor, this just says structure. It just has cooling, which is just single heat sinks. So every heat sink in the mech and the engine cooling itself is half as effective on this mech as the other two medium mechs we have. That's important. Now, it's interesting. It has an LRM-5 and an SRM-2. That's very interesting, especially since, if you recall, we looked in the shop to see what was on offer. And there were some good LRMs in there. Specifically, the enhanced LRM is very interesting for this mech. But we're not there yet. It's just, that's the thing I'm thinking as I'm looking through this first pass, is we have a mech that needs work. The other two, again, I'm probably not going to touch either of the other two medium mechs before we drop on our first mission. This one, I want to. Because again, remember, 25 damage is the medium laser. That means a single medium laser anywhere other than the torsos. If it's in the back, if it's in the arms, if it's in the legs, this mech is going to be already shredded from just a medium laser. If 2 medium lasers hit, ooh, we're about to lose an arm. Like, that's not great. So, we definitely want to put a little bit of attention here, because getting a replacement 40-tonner is not necessarily harder. I mean, you do have to drop on higher difficulty missions to fight medium mechs to get medium mech parts as salvage to build a new medium mech. But also, the bigger and heavier the mech is when you salvage it, because it's going to be busted when you salvage it, especially early game before you have any mech tech built up. It costs C-bills to repair it. It costs C-bills to put a new engine core in it, etc., etc. So, losing a medium mech is a much more expensive loss than losing a light mech. So if I have to drop a 20-tonner with a high chance it's going to blow up and be destroyed, but it lets me protect a 40-tonner, absolutely. No question in my mind, I'm willing to do it. So, again, we're not doing anything yet. This is just the first pass, but it has no armor upgrade. It has no structure upgrade. It has no engine upgrade. It has no cooling upgrade. It has no upgrades of any kind. We're definitely going to drop the jump jets because we need that tonnage if we don't have any kind of upgrades. We're definitely going to switch this from LRM, SRM, medium laser, which is short range, long range, to probably just a full long range battery of missiles. Although, also worth noting, we do have swarm missiles, which allows us, if we don't have a good hit chance, to just do some guaranteed chip damage. We also have a bin of listen kill ammo, which just gives +1 accuracy to SRMs. We have an SRM 6 on our stealth. So this being taken off of here and replacing the SRM and getting more tonnage to make this into nothing but an LRM boat will actually also make our stealth stronger. So that's very interesting. But again, I'm not going to touch anything yet. This is just the first pass. So, knowing that I want this to be my first project mech, this mech is the first priority, because the only other mechs we have other than the 3 we've looked at so far are light mechs, and again, the medium mech takes priority over the light mechs. So, the immediate things I'm thinking: shift it from short range to long range. Now, long range missiles are slightly heavier than short range missiles, but we'll find the tonnage. And I already kind of glanced whenever I clicked through the different mechs, moving them around. I didn't say anything about it because I wanted you to focus on one thing at a time, but I already glanced. I already know what we've got in the next couple mechs we're about to look at. But just for now, for your sake, look at them heaviest to lightest. See what it is that you intend to do with it, but don't do anything yet. So I intend to drop the jump jets, in part because we're making it a long-range missile fire support mech. It doesn't need to be jumping around. Worth noting, it also doesn't need to move very fast. Early game, everybody misses a lot. The enemies are also, whenever you're dropping on low skull missions, you're going to have a hard time hitting, and the enemies are going to have a hard time hitting. So evasion doesn't really get that important until you at least get up to 1.5, 2 skull missions, when people start actually landing shots with some degree of regularity. But for now, we're definitely, again, not yet. We're just, in our minds, making a plan. And the plan is going to be to drop the SRMs, make the stealth stronger with the listen kill missiles, get more LRMs in here, as many as we can fit. Definitely the enhanced 10, maybe the 20, probably not the 20 because 20s are really heavy, but we're definitely going to find a way to fit that enhanced 10 in here. We're able to drop the 7 jump jets. Each jump jet's half a ton, so that's 3.5 tons. If we're dropping the SRM2, that's 4.5 tons, and then the ton of ammo, that's 5.5 tons. If you remember, whenever we looked at the shop, well, okay, I didn't point it out, so you probably don't remember, but the enhanced LRM-10 is 6 tons. If we're dropping in an enhanced LRM-10 with the LRM-5, we're going to need more than just the 1 ton of ammo. So we'd be firing 15 LRMs per round, which means that 120 shots, first of all, is only swarm. So we'd have no actual, like, sustained, reliable, like, not reliable. We'd have no sustained damage instances beyond the scattering of AoE. So we definitely want at least 1 more bin of ammo. But if we're only running an enhanced 10 and an LRM-5, we don't need a double bin, necessarily. So what I think I would actually do, again, not going to do anything yet, I think I would drop the jump jets, drop the SRM-2 and the bin of ammo, and then with all of that gone, we would need to find an additional 1 ton. Because again, the SRMs and the jump jets, that's 5.5 tons out of the 6 we need for just the weapon system. And they're selling half bins of LRM ammo, which is 60 shots. Now, that's only 4 alpha strikes if we're firing all 15. But keep in mind, you can split the different weapon systems. So, since the LRM-5 does 5 damage per missile, we would only ever fire the swarm ammo with the LRM-5. Meanwhile, the enhanced LRM does more damage per missile, so we would always use the standard ammo for that. So it's actually 6 alpha strikes of standard ammo for the enhanced LRM. See how we're thinking? Now, that doesn't increase our armor any, but again, long range, maybe we could get by with some lower than preferred armor. We could also potentially drop the medium laser in exchange for more armor on the torso. Now, if you're a fire support mech that has no weapons in your arms and you lose an arm, no big deal. Sure, a shot that hits arm could transfer through to torso, yada yada, but primarily as a fire support mech with no weapons in the arm, it's kind of okay to lose an arm. Losing a leg? Not so good. If you have a leg down, then you could fall whenever you just walk, which causes a pilot injury, and that's a lot. So we definitely would want more on our legs, but we definitely need more than 60 and 50 on the torso. Yes, we do have the 50 structure and 60 structure. However, when you're taking structure damage, every single instance of damage has a chance to crit. Which means if you get peppered with an LRM-15 setup and all 15 missiles hit structure, even if no location gets destroyed, that's 15 chances that something is going to get crit. And if the ammo gets crit, it explodes. So, those are all the things we're sitting here thinking about, and we haven't even touched anything yet. And this is just mech number 3. Worth noting, there is also a slight upgrade to the cockpit. We do have +2 initiative, which is okay. I might consider actually dropping that and putting it on the stealth, in part to protect it in case we have to eject this pilot, because we're more likely to need to eject a pilot that has less armor. The sooner the armor gets shredded off, the sooner you might need to punch out. And if you punch out, you lose your head, which means we would lose this nice little upgraded cockpit. So unless we can get this thing to a point where it has comparable armor to the other 2 medium mechs, that's definitely finding their way onto one of them. Other than that, again, since we have no equipment to start with, and all I've looked at was in the shop, that's probably about where it's going to be. So our goal is to basically find as much tonnage as we can to put more armor on after we do the weapon swap that I just discussed. And hopefully manage to keep the medium laser, maybe, or replace it with maybe a machine gun in case somebody gets close. Ideally, we're going to be sitting back 420 to 840. Yeah, we'll have an accuracy penalty for firing at long range, but if we're beyond 420, their medium lasers won't even be able to shoot at us. So, yeah, we're going to try to build this thing as a long-range mech and hope that it gives survivability from being just out of reach. Now then, we have our project mech. No matter what these two mechs look like, that is the mech we're working on first. So let's go ahead and see what we've got here. A Locust 3V. Friends do not let friends pilot Locusts. Now, yes, right now it has comparable armor to the mech, to the medium mech we were just looking at. But it's a Locust. I joke. I've always hated Locusts. They look fine. I don't mind how they look. It's just whenever I was playing mostly the tabletop, I had a Locust that just would always get one shot every time I played. Ever. Now, sure, I was young and probably just not very good at the game and probably had it built poorly, but yeah, it exploded every single time. It was always like a one shot, and yeah, I don't think it ever got a kill. So that was a long time ago though, so it's more of a joke at this point. I have successfully dropped Locusts and had a good time doing it. I will always just make the joke that friends do not let friends pilot Locusts. So, yeah, if you look at the movement, you'll see the benefit of a 20-ton mech. It has 813 movement. We'll get to what that means once we get into the compat, but just that's a lot. You can tell because the bar is almost full. Yeah, it's gonna be evasive. That doesn't make it good, but it's gonna be evasive. And yeah, it has nothing of note, but more importantly, nothing of value. So if it explodes, it's not that big of a deal. Also, the Locust does have the narrow, low-profile quirk, which is honestly my favorite quirk of all the game, or of all the mechs in the game. It just gives you +1 defense against being hit. Essentially half an evasion for free all the time, even when you're lying on the ground. So, yeah, it's helpful. The -5% visibility is also kind of okay. Doesn't really matter too much until you get some electronic warfare and stealth going on. And if you're putting electronic warfare and stealth on a 20-tonner, then oof. I don't know. Maybe. Then again, that part of the entire save break rework that they were working on was they were trying to make lighter tonnages more viable longer into the game. So I should hold my bias in check until I get further into the game and see exactly how far I can get with a 20-tonner. I shouldn't make judgment calls based on old information. But it doesn't have anything important. It's got 2 machine guns, a half bin of ammo, 2 medium lasers, an engine core, and some heat sinks. That's it. So yeah, if this thing explodes and we lose it, I definitely would not. I wouldn't even pour a beer out for it. So I am going to make one change because this mech is not going to be touched. We already have a project mech. This mech has nothing of value to offer and nothing that we can really do to improve it. So I'm just going to do one small defensive thing. That. But I am going to go into in-depth why I did that. So there is an alternative way to do essentially what I just did. And that is to leave it there, but to put all of the heat sinks over there. The reason, I'll just get to why that's the lesser of the two choices. The reason why that's the lesser of the two is because now if you lose your right torso, you're not cooling enough to even fire your 2 medium lasers and run around. Well, maybe you could still get away with it. Maybe. Assuming the ammo didn't explode, assuming that you still have a mech up and running, you might not be able to fire the 2 medium lasers reliably with just the 6 heat sinks that are in the engine, because every engine has the tonnage allotment for 10 heat sinks, but the smaller the engine, the less heat sinks that are actually physically built into it. So these heat sinks do not weigh any tonnage. You'll see if I try to drop one, it goes to 9 out of 10, showing it does not have enough heat sinks to function, and the tonnage does not change, because that is an engine heatsink. It's outside of the engine, but it is an engine heatsink. In any case, if we lose a side torso and we lose all of our heat sinks, we're going to have some cooling problems. Now, you'll understand why that's an option in a second, whenever I get done explaining this. Having it in the leg, first of all, it has 5 less structure protecting it from the front. They both have 30 armor. The right torso has 25 structure, the right leg has 20. Structure doesn't really matter too much when it's a bin of ammo. Unless you have case. If you have case 2, then... okay, if you have case 2, then the structure difference might be worth it. But you're spending tonnage on case. What this does, it has the same amount of armor from the front. And again, I say from the front, protecting it. But if you're getting hit in the back, it only had 10 armor protecting it there. In the leg, from the back, it still has 30 armor protecting it, until it's all gone. Yes, that armor can be shredded from the front or the back, but you gotta be careful with ammo. So, the second consideration of why I'm putting in the leg. In the side torso, once the armor was gone, or if somebody got a through armor crit, there would be a roll to see what component in the location got the crit. As it was, of the 3 things in the location, there would be a 33% chance that the machine gun ammo would get crit. Whereas in the leg, it's one of 5 things, so that drops it from 33% to 20%. Just by moving it to the leg. And that is the primary consideration. That's why moving the heat sinks over is also a viable option, because then it would still be a 20% chance to get crit. Actually, that's a good question. Does the specialist slot with nothing in it have a chance to absorb a crit? I don't know, and I don't actually know how I would be able to test that without just digging through the mod files. I mean, I would assume, just like these other slots that don't have anything in them, it wouldn't count. I would assume, but that's not necessarily how it's implemented. In any case, that's an aside that I don't need to be getting into. Ammo in the leg. If it doesn't have case, the primary reason to put it in the leg is so that there's more things that could potentially soak the crit instead of the ammo. If you have a side torso completely full of heat sinks and other things that won't explode, cool. Toss it in the side torso. Good luck. The primary benefit, if it does get crit, regardless of which location it's in, that having it in the leg does, is the damage when it explodes, because when an ammo bin explodes, all the ammo that's left blows up and does damage to the mech. If it's in the leg, it has to completely destroy the leg, then travel to the side torso and completely destroy the side torso before whatever's left travels to the center torso. You might not lose a mech if the leg and the ammo, or if the ammo in the leg explodes. If it's in the side torso, you're much more likely, because then if the ammo explodes, it destroys the side torso, and then any damage that's left over just goes straight to the center. So you have one more degree of separation from the ammo explosion to your mech chassis, basically. So, that's why, without even looking at anything else, because we're not going to do anything to this mech. Realistically, we're not. We have a project mech. No matter what else we do, this is all that's going to happen. There's nothing to take off, there's nothing to put on, so we just commit to that. I know I said I'm not going to touch anything the first time through. That's the one exception. When you have a 20-ton mech, or the lightest mech that you have, that has nothing going for it, nothing worth taking off of it, and you have other priorities first. Eventually, several missions into the playthrough, we might do something to improve the Locust if we haven't replaced it by then. But this brings us to the last mech in our roster right now. We got ourselves a Hornet. Okay. I don't really care about the Hornet. I don't really care about the Hornet at all. What I do care about is the Hornet has Pharaoh and Indo. Now, these are percentage weight reductions, which means that by default, it's going to be less effective in a light mech than in a medium mech. And we happen to have medium mech, project mech. But I'm not going to do anything yet. We now have identified we're going to take stuff off. Let me take a sip real quick. We now have identified we're going to take stuff off. So let's take a moment to think about what exactly we're going to do. When we drop the ferrofibrous, right now it is saving 0.419. You see the tonnage minus 0.419. So not even half a ton. The Endosteel is saving exactly 1 ton. We have jump jets, which means we can drop the Pharaoh and the Indo off of the mech. And as long as we can save 1.5 tons, we can run the rest of it exactly as it is. Well, we have these jump jets. The jump jets are each half a ton. So if we drop 3 jump jets, we can drop the Pharaoh and Indo and still run everything else as is. But we can actually do better than that. Because I'm looking at this, and with the jump jets out of the legs, we can move the ammo to the legs. Now, case is a very interesting consideration. Now, if you've been playing Roguetech at all, you might have seen the loading tooltip that case is like a condom. It's better to have it and not need it. And while that is true, you have to keep in mind there's a difference between just case, like this, and case 2. So, case 2 is 1 ton instead of half a ton. And it prevents any ammo in that location from well, it doesn't prevent it from exploding. If it explodes, it prevents the explosion. Case 2 prevents the explosion from doing more than a set amount of damage. So if you have a full bin of LRM ammo, like a standard bin of LRM ammo with 120 shots, 5 damage per shot, that's 700 damage. 600 damage. Math. That's 600 damage. So if a full bin of LRM ammo goes off, that's 600 damage. Case 2 will drop that down to a flat amount. Case just prevents it from traveling towards the center torso. Which means, if a bin of ammo in a light mech explodes, the case will make that side torso pop and the arm pop. Is it worth half a ton to lose half the mech and still be able to run around? Because that's really what you're getting out of that half ton expenditure. In a situation like this, where there is multiple bins of ammo, absolutely. Case is absolutely worth. Like you're never, especially with an LRM5, you're never gonna burn through 240 shots faster than this mech's gonna explode. Now, that brings the other side of the discussion into the picture. If you can't use the ammo quickly enough, why do you have that much ammo? We have a medium laser and a small laser, but we have 240 missiles for our LRM5. That is excessive. If we go to the store, which again, this is why we looked in the store before we looked at the mechs, we can buy a half bin of LRM ammo, which is 60 shots. That will give us 12 Alpha Strikes with the LRM-5. The best part is, even if it's full, that bin of ammo exploding would only be 300 damage instead of 600. Now, if it explodes on turn 1, oof. But every time you shoot the LRM-5, you're reducing the potential explosion damage by 25. Also, you can jettison ammo. If you get to the point where your torso is open and you're worried about the ammo getting crit, you can actually... I will show you how once we get into the mission, probably at the end of the first mission before I actually finish it. You can jettison all remaining ammo in that ammo bin. So if you know that you've got your deadfire ammo in one torso and your regular ammo in the other, and the side torso that has the regular ammo in it is open, and thus very likely to be crit, you can jettison the ammo. So that reduces the risk. That's all Case really does. Case helps mitigate the risk. It reduces the risk from ammo explosions, from crits. They still hurt. You still lose half a mech. Obviously, the weapon that was being fed by that ammo is no longer going to be functional. Anything that got blown off in conjunction with that ammo explosion, like in this case the small laser, is going to be gone. But this is spending half a ton to mitigate the danger a little bit. Whereas, again, shifting the ammo to the leg, reducing the ammo to only enough that you actually need for the weapon. So if we put a half bin of LRM-5 ammo in the leg, and the leg gets opened 3 rounds in, we'll have 45 missiles left. At that point, based on the situation, if we can turn where only our left side is facing the enemies, we can keep firing. They can't crit what they can't hit. So, Case is just a method of mitigating the chance for ammo explosions that A, cost tonnage, and B, you don't have to think about. And that's the key thing. That's why I will never say Case is bad. There are some Roguetech players who hate Case and will constantly just get that out of my mech. Not naming any names. But I very much believe that when it is appropriate, Case is very good to have. But since this is your first playthrough, you might want to keep it. And you might want to use it. Because if you forget which side torso your ammo's in while you're moving, yes, you can check in mission to see where the ammo is on the paper doll. But if you don't think to check before you move, and you put your open leg that has the ammo in it towards your enemies, oops. Now then, another note with Case, and I know I've been going on with Case for like 10 minutes now. It's important. It really is. The other note with Case is that it can only be installed, I believe, in side torso and center torso only. Yeah. Cannot put it in legs, cannot put it in arms. Pretty sure you can't put it in the head either. Yeah, no. Only side and center torso. Pretty sure center torso. Yeah. Yeah, it has to be torso mounted. So you have to decide between either ammo explosion in leg, hopefully the whatever damage is left from the missiles you haven't fired yet doesn't make it all the way to center, or Case inside torso. It's just different ways of mitigating it. That's all it is. And Case is the turn brain off, hope things are fine way of mitigating it. Now, hopefully by the time you're done following me through the very, very in-depth, detailed, thought-by-thought, moment-by-moment discussion of how to play Roguetech and my assistance getting you over the learning curve, hopefully you'll eventually be able to decide confidently whether or not that half ton to you is worth it. To me, it is not. But that's because I've been playing this for so very long, and I've spent so much time with this game, and with just the Roguetech or the Battletech universe in general. So I have a long-standing understanding of how to keep ammo explosions from crippling me. And there is always the risk. There's always the chance that you mess up, or that somebody gets a flank that you weren't expecting, and oop, ammo went boom. But you just deal with that when it happens. Unless you have case, specifically case 2, in which case you just don't care. Now, moving on. Again, not touching anything. The only reason we moved the one ammo bin in the other mech is because that is the only thing, until we drop on the first mission, that's the only thing we're touching on that mech. So, now, I have not touched anything. I've thought of things I'd like to do. I have ideas of what I'd like to do. And this is the point where I'm going to make the financial decision of what to do. So, that Pharaoh and that Indo going onto the Assassin will definitely give us the tonnage we need for the enhanced LRM-10 and ammo and armor. Which means we might not have to make it just a long-range brawler. So, the only thing I absolutely know for certain right now, without any further thought or consideration, is that I'm definitely buying this enhanced LRM-10, which is 6 tons, 3 slots, 7 damage per missile. Absolutely, right now. So that was an investment, a sizable investment for early game. That was, 7% or so of our starting funds? And I see this Guardian Asia. I want it, and I don't know where to put it. But I'm going to hold off on that, because that is straight up 10% of our starting funds. Until I pass the first day. And I'm going to do that tomorrow. Because we now have the LRM that we want. We don't know which bins of ammo specifically we want, because we don't know what all we're going to do until after we see the Bushwhacker. The other reason I immediately just dropped the ammo into the leg for the Locust is that is a one-day job. Remember I said we need to pass one day to get our commander perk, the mech that we got for our background. That gives us that one day. Otherwise, I would have found a very minor change that I was 100% going to do on something else, and I would have set that up to do for one day, so that I could then, as we will tomorrow, click the play button for one day. And that has been day 0 of your first Roguetech playthrough. I look forward to walking through absolutely every bit of minutia, because I know there are so many systems that are working under the hood here, and hopefully, by the time I'm done walking with you, you'll be able to handle completely whatever you want to do in your next playthrough. But for now, that's been Roguetech. Have a good one.